Mel? Hey everybody, let me know if you can hear me. I want to not talk for like an hour and realize that the stream's not working, so if you guys hear me, please go ahead and type something on the chat. Otherwise, it'll be pretty pointless for me to just talk to myself, but here it goes. Now everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. Again, yep, there you go. We got some response here. I guess I'm live. Let me know if you can hear me. There you go. There is Liv. There's Vashu. The good old folks here. I haven't done a live stream for a very long time. Had some time today. I figured I'll spend about an hour and a half talking about what Jerome Powell have said during the FOMC release. Apparently, he said that the U.S. economy is doing well despite geopolitical tensions and tariffs. So let's go ahead and dissect every single word that he said, because that can certainly fill like an hour or two and be absolute about what he says, because it really matters. Because honestly, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't hear that the economy was doing well. Let me see. Did we get affected by the tariffs? Yeah, a little bit, but the market just keeps on going up to the right because I guess they're printing money. Let's talk about a few things here. I actually didn't really even know that Jerome Powell was speaking today. I was kind of tired of him talking about my nuts, though. A little bit annoying. Did this chart here about 2 weeks ago. I did it on futures, and here I'm showing you, this is futures here. Here I'm showing you the actual, NASDAQ or whatever, the NDX. Basically, I see a little bit of a ascending triangle here. It looks bullish, but a lot of times even though it looks bullish, it likes to kind of break down underneath the triangle and then push up, and maybe we might be due for a little bit of a back test actually coming maybe later this week before going up higher. Yeah, I mean, that's what I call the asshole move. I guess that's what they're doing. Speculated for about 12 weeks ago. So lower time frame seems like we're kind of breaking out of this consolidation zone. Looks like it wants to maybe go a little bit higher, but the back test might get a little bit of people kind of a little bit uneasy. If you just look at a 3-month chart here at the SPX or SPY here in particular, you can see how it's basically just broken above this RSI trend line. If you look at the overall SPX here on the monthly chart, you can see that we've actually, from like the peak of the housing bubble, and you draw a trend line, which is completely pointless, by the way. Anybody can draw this. Anybody who has a crayon can draw. It doesn't really matter, but it's just pretty interesting. It kind of got bounced here, rejected twice, broke through back test a couple months ago, and then people are talking about recession, market crash, and whatnot. So it's just been showing pretty strong resilience and pretty strong market structure here. So I don't really know what else to say about market bears. I'm just gonna leave that be. If you're looking at even a higher time frame here, zooming way out to the 1920s, you can see we also have broken above this crazy trend line where it touches the dot-com bubble, and Trump says that we're going to double in the market. Yay, right? If you look at Danny's chart here, I know a lot of folks probably not too familiar. It's got a lot too many colors. I think for people who suffer from like epilepsy, you might have a little bit of hard time reading Danny's chart, but essentially all you really need to pay attention is the trend. All you really need to pay attention are a couple things. One is you see a red candle here. Trend most likely would continue to go up. And if you see price holding the red ribbon, price will probably continue to go up. And if you also see that whales are greater than like 70-80%, which is 75 of these red bars over here, most likely momentum is going to the upside here. So there's nothing really that concerning on the S&P 500. I don't know what the bears are really talking about here. Did a chart here too, I think yesterday. This is something called an Ichimoku cloud. You don't have to know what it is if you don't care. All it is just kind of following some moving how do you say that? Moving averages, but not really. It's like moving period average. I'm just going to leave it as that. And it gives you these lines over here, and they can serve as support or resistance. You can see how this is the ratio of the QQQ over the SPY. So it's the NASDAQ over the S&P 500 in a more euphoric bull market like the one that we had in 2000 all the way to 2021. The NASDAQ has significantly outperformed the S&P 500, and it went way too far, way too fast, and decided to have a little bit of distribution here. Came back test the cloud exactly where it is, bounced very strongly, pushed through the cloud here, and it looks like we have probably NASDAQ outperformance over the S&P 500 moving forward, because it pushed through all these different lines here, and now it looks very bullish in terms of this ratio here. So as far as I'm concerned, I think the NASDAQ is gonna end up pushing further up against the S&P 500. Now, there are always going to be a lot of people that are relatively short-sighted, meaning that they need to be kind of redirected. You're right. You know, the NASDAQ has underperformed the S&P 500 over the last 3 months. You're absolutely correct about that. But overall, this is a higher high, high low type situation. And this ratio right now has a blue line here. I call that the Ichimoku Tenkan, that's quickly rising to catch up as support. So probably will end up pushing this ratio higher over time, as far as I am concerned. Now, next up, I think that even though I talk a lot about the S&P 500, I do think that the star of 2026, and which is why I think that this year is going to be a little bit of a banger year, even though Sunny here disagrees with me. Apparently IWM going higher is a defensive move and not risk on. But honestly, the last few times when it happened is really risk on, because when it happens, what IWM is the Russell 2000 ETF, and it represents the small caps of the stock market. It represents the small cap of the stock market, where it is usually the riskiest, and they are the most economically sensitive. They're most sensitive to liquidity. They are the backbone of the US economy, and these are smaller companies. They're more likely to be in debt. They are more sensitive in terms of what's going on. So if they end up looking bullish, as far as I'm concerned, it is a risk-on behavior. Now, I'm showing you 4 cycles here. Currently, this is the 4th cycle that is being shown here on the screen. Each of these cycles go through an accumulation or bear market phase here, here, and here. And as soon as we break through the bear market phase, that's usually when euphoric sentiment comes in over and over and over again, with the exception of the current breakout. The current breakout, if you look at the CNN Fear and Greed Index just from yesterday, and I think today's probably going to be a little worse because it's pretty volatile, it's just entered like a lukewarm greed territory here. And it doesn't really seem to be that euphoric, even though we have penetrated. And I can repeat that word again to clarify to all the viewers that are listening, because it's very important that you hear this. We have penetrated a resistance zone that has been ongoing for about 4 years, which means that the accumulation zone, the double bottom over here, or so I call the accumulation, I can also say that, you know, basically whales are trying to grab your shares, and you don't want to be grabbed because it's not really consensual. So once they grab it, and you know, you lose interest, and you just deject, and you just kind of stare into space, and that's when they catch you off guard, right? Before, they were just grabbing a little bit. Here, they only grab it for about like 2 years. Here, they grab it for like 1.5 years. Here, they grab it for like 1.5 years. And they're like, oh, never mind. Hey, let's everybody have fun. You know, I'll buy you dinner. You know, here's a lobster dinner and whatnot. Oh, yay. You know, here's a helicopter ride. Oh, hey, yeah, here's like, I don't even know what they gave you over here. It's just something ridiculously euphoric. Anyway, over here, what happened? Well, you know, you basically stuck with this guy as he was going through, like, I don't know, going through like some construction work, trying to pay for college, going through all these other things. And by the time when you think that he's gonna, like, you know, get out of construction school and he's gonna be like the greatest constructor ever, next thing you know, his company, you know, basically went down and he had to borrow a bunch of money. And he finally climbed himself out of a hole, and you look at him and like, I can't believe I was just with you for about 4 or 5 years. This is not what I thought it was gonna be. I thought you were gonna just construct, because you've constructed over and over again, and it was relatively quickly before. Why is it that I'm your fourth wife, and it took 4 years for you to get where I want you to go, right? So the sentiment right now is a little bit lukewarm, and I think that might mean that this might be a little bit of a slow burn territory, because the guy has been disappointing the woman for a very long time. So there's nowhere to go but up, right? Now she's starting to see a little bit of, you know, maybe not lobster dinner, but maybe some grocery store sushi. You know, you're starting to be, okay, so he's treating me well. I'm not going to Subway at Walmart anymore. He's showing some, he's actually stopping by a grocery store and getting me some grocery store sushi. That's kind of cute, right? Maybe even like one flower, right? This is kind of how it goes, and like what time ago. Anyway, I ran on and on. I think you get the point of what I'm trying to say here. I don't think that she's ready for what's coming. I just don't think so. If you're also looking at some of my other charts here by my collaborator, this is the Great Matsby. The Great Matsby has shown a lot of really interesting charts here, and these are called Gantt square. Usually they're just done by, you know, Fibonacci level number 45. You can see that it really kind of follows the cycle pretty well. Here it broke through the arc and went to the next level over here. Eventually got rejected here by this arc, and we finally broken through. So that would lead logically for it to go higher, for you to finally get some lobster dinner here, because of market symmetry. Now this is Danny's chart over here. There's another collaborator of mine. I actually drew these things for him. These are all my handwriting, quote, even though I don't hands, I pulse. All you really have to know here is that this cycle over here currently looks very, very similar to what it looked like during COVID, based on morphology, based on market symmetry, based on Welsh momentum. And really currently this month, like, you have so much Welsh momentum, it's not even funny. Like, you don't have any retail momentum here at all. Even the monthly MACD Golden Cross has occurred. Everything is looking pretty decent here. So I'm not really scared about the Russell 2000. Now, back in November of 2025, when the sentiment went to crap, man, my internet's slow. When the sentiment went to crap, I would say that I was actually bullish on the market, because, well, Bitcoin tanked from October to December. Altcoins tanked from October to December. So the 4-year cycle is up. Everything is done, right? Market's done. Well, it just happens that something weird is happening, because Russell 2000 looks like it's about to break out, and the US dollar looked like it was about to get rejected, right? This is what I posted back in November. Now, if this turns out to be rejected right here, and if it turns out we make all-time highs over here, usually the trend keeps going, right? You can have stabilization of the US dollar, that's fine. But usually the euphoric sentiment would come, and usually the bull market would come after that. And fast forward into January, we got rejected right there as expected, and we have a breakout of the Russell 2000. We are technically in a risk-on environment, but do people care? Not really. I just told you, like, they suffered through 4 years of like Subway dinner at Walmart. Like, they're not gonna care as much. Here's another one for you to kind of, you know, tell you whether or not this cycle is very similar to the previous cycle here. I think so. Usually you have these, actually, it's pretty interesting. The ARK babies, you're talking about things like Tesla, you're talking about things like Roku. What other things have ran hard? I think Shopify ran pretty hard for the last 2 years. Anyway, it's supposed to be a relatively risk-on ETF. It has all the high valuation junk that is like potato chips that nobody's supposed to really want. If you're a true investor, you would never buy any ARK funds, right? Well, what happened is that it's been going up on a channel here for about 3 years straight, and it just broke out of the channel, it just back tested it. And it's holding. So where you think it's going to go next, it's going to go up. The interesting thing over here, it broke over, it had a channel over here last time, 2018 all the way to 2020. Broke through the channel, didn't even really back tested it, consolidated over here, waiting for IWM to break out, right? Consolidated over here to back test that channel, waiting for IWM to break out. Doesn't mean we only have 3 more, 3 more months. Probably not. I mean, this cycle just looks a lot longer. The Subway sandwiches have been supplied for a lot longer. I think Liv is talking about how, yeah, like she's been eating a lot of Costco hot dogs. And because of that, I think that the runway may be a little bit longer here because the base is long. And when the base is long, you know what they say about big base. Another point to make here is it does look like we might have a rotation going here between the large caps and the small caps. By the way, are you guys still there? I think you guys, just type something. Let me know that you're all there. I'm always afraid that like my internet just goes to crap and I just don't have any internet. But anyway, yeah, type something on the chat. Just keep it alive. Russell 2000, small caps. QQQ represents the ETF. It's basically for the NASDAQ 100 stocks. The large caps. What happens every time before they kind of consolidate here? Well, let's take a look at what IWM has done cycle after cycle after cycle. Every single time right when it breaks out of this whole long-term resistance zone over here. I love you long time as well. Anyway, I was responding to the chat. If you're listening to recording, I'm not crazy. I am crazy, but that's a separate story. This is a breakout after a long base over here. And it it's associated with consolidation of the NASDAQ 100, right? Very clear. Large cap has already run up for about 3 years. Finally, it's small caps to break out. So what does the large cap do? They consolidate, right? Rotation, right? Well, the question is what happens after that? Does it mean the large cap is going down and small cap is going up? Does it mean they're both going down? What happened before that when something like this happened? Let's see. Breakout 2020, late 2020, consolidation, late 2020. Then they both ran up afterwards, right? Same thing here. In late 2016, consolidation for large caps, breakout for the small caps. And then after that, what happens? They ran up together for about a year and a half, right? And then the time before that, consolidation on the large caps, breakout of the small caps, even gapped up here. There's like a gap here for IWM that hasn't really even been filled. And then after that, what happened? They ran up for about 2 years together. So this pattern seems to be playing out over and over and over again. This is TQQQ. It's basically the same thing. I just want to let you know that TQQQ, even with all the decay that it had in 2022, is making all-time highs. That's the whole point there. And this is also an illustration in terms of why a lot of the large cap stocks like Palantir, NVDA, even Tesla have really done nothing over the last 3-4 months. Is because, based on history, when the small cap breaks out, you have consolidation over here for 5 months, consolidation over here for about 7 or 8 months. And right now we've had consolidation over here, I'll argue about 5, 6, 7 months already during this breakout. Does that mean that we're getting ready for the next leg up for both large cap and small caps? I think so. I got these kinds of bookmarks here. Everybody's talking about metal. So let's dig in a little bit into metals over here. Now, I am by no means saying that gold has topped. because I don't want anybody to be reading this chart and saying, oh, I'm going to short gold. That is not the way to go. when things are going this parabolic, when you got a Marubazu candle, which basically means there's no wick above or below, it can keep going up for a while, kind of like this Marubazu candle over there. Maybe. But the reality is I'm just trying to line up gold here together with IWM breakout into all-time high. So if you're looking at IWM breaking out into all-time high here, you see what gold did. Well, gold kind of topped here a couple months ago. Same thing here, IWM breakout, gold topped about a couple months ago. IWM breakout, what happened? Gold topped about 3-4 months ago. This happened in November 2020. This top here is August 2020. I remember that specifically because I was trading gold at that time. But anyway. And then you have this big giant runway of a lot of liquidity being trapped in gold. It just makes a big parabolic move here in a foreign big base here in a small cap. The small cap finally is breaking out over here. But gold has not topped yet. This is like a very unusual situation because that is very different from what happened before. Gold liquidity rotates into small caps. Gold liquidity rotates into small caps. Gold liquidity rotates into small caps. What happened right now? Gold is just keep on like sucking liquidity in. It looks like it wants to go for a blow off top. Nobody knows how high it's going to go. I don't think it's going to be 5 figures. Watch me eat my word, but I don't think it's going to be 5 figures. And as far as I'm concerned, with IWM breakout, I think the top of gold is closed, but everybody's talking about rotation from gold into, risk on assets. So maybe gold just keep going here for a while and just burn all your shorts and just keep rocketing higher while there's enough liquidity alone in the system anyway to pump small caps. But there's a lot of liquidity being trapped over here. I don't think I'm the only person talking about it. But anyway, that is point number one. Point number two, y'all look at silver, is very similar. Usually silver tops about a couple months before IWM breakout. And this time is a little bit different because silver just keeps on going berserk. And IWM is just beginning to kind of break out here. So I don't know where silver topped. Don't ask me. If you must ask me about gold and silver, and I'm gonna sound like a fool, just like all the other people that are trying to call a top, because I think it's pointless to try and call a top on something that's just kept on going and going and going. Where is my silver chart? All right, gold. What's gold doing? Well, let's look at fib levels here. From top here to the bottom over here, if I can grab the bottom right there, it's already shot through the 2.618 log fib. It looks like it wants to keep going. I don't think it's going to go to the 4 figures. But it's shooting through here like crazy, and we only have maybe like 3 days before the gold candle closes. So I can't say that it's topped, and I don't really care to call a top, but it certainly looks very risky here. Look at silver. Whew, it's about to hit the 1.618. Now, for silver, I do think 1.618 might be the top, but I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Right. That's not the point to trying to call a top. What I'm trying to say is that it still lines up pretty well. The point I'm trying to make is this. Just because metal is going heavy metal, is going crazy up, it has done previously, cycle and cycle before that, it doesn't mean that the economy is going to crap. It doesn't mean that these are safe haven, that it needs to, whatever. Like, it doesn't mean any of that. If you're thinking that gold and silver goes up because people are scared, that's not generally how it works. Gold and silver keep going up because they've been going up. There's euphoric sentiment in gold and silver because it's been going up, and because there is euphoric sentiment. It's just the way it kind of works, right? But I guess what I'm trying to say is I would not be scared about silver going up, because the truth is that silver is industrial, right? What's looking very bullish right now? Industrials. The industrials are looking extremely bullish. This is my Gann squared for the XLI, which is the industrial sector. I haven't looked at it for a while, by the way. I've said this for a couple of years ago. I was actually amazed that during the April 2025, it backtested the ARK here perfectly, which is kind of amazing to me. But yeah, it looks amazing. It looks like it just wanted to kind of keep rattling up, right? And if anything, I think this might be one of those signs that the economy is actually not doing bad, because industrials are actually doing extremely well right now. Look at copper. A lot of people told me to look at copper. Boom, 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 boom. 6 monthly candle pushing on the way up here. Dr. Copper is supposed to be a sign for how the economy is doing. And I think if copper is doing well, I don't really think that the economy is doing that bad, to be completely honest with you. Yeah, I mean, I don't buy the notion that just because metals are going up, the economy is going to crap, and that this is, if anything, I think liquidity is just being trapped there. Now, if you ask me, when is liquidity going to roll over, I do not know. I don't think anybody really knows, and I certainly do not claim to know at all. And it doesn't really matter, to be honest. Now, I want to move on to the next topic here, which is China. When it comes to China, I want to see if I can play this little clip here. And this is something like a recording. It was, I think, from Matt Speed, Danny, and I. We did a collaborative video of some kind. This is back in like September 2024. And Danny was asking me about the market. I don't know whether or not you can hear this, but I'm going to turn on the volume and try my best here. When Danny was asking me,
I know it's going to benefit Bitcoin. It's going to benefit like the US, IWM. I think everything is going to be fine over the next like 12 to 18 months is my guess.
So. Do you have the target price level?
You're talking about the Hang Seng index? I think the Hang Seng can get up to like 28,000. Maybe over the next.
That's very bullish.
yeah, I think it can get up to maybe 28,000, and it could happen in the next like 12 to 18 months. But that's still not the all-time high. You know, like you're still going to get a lot of resistance there, and we'll see what happens then when it gets there. So.
All right, that was my clip there from September 2024. So fast forward 16 months later, what's happening? Well, let's look at the Hang Seng Index here. I was mentioning that the 28,000 is going to be a strong resistance zone. There are a couple of reasons for that. One is if you're doing a fib level from the all-time high top to the recent bottom over there, 28,000 is right at 0.76, which is a very important zone of resistance there. The other reason why is because if you do a trend line over here, you can see, dot, dot, dot. We're right there. We're literally right there. That's a strong resistance zone right there. Doesn't mean that we should be scared. Doesn't mean that the cycle's over when it hits that area and it gets rejected and then boom, down we go. Does that mean that? Maybe. I would say it would mean that if the Chinese government would stop printing money because they're worried about inflation, but if anything, they're facing severe deflation right now, and they're just trying to print their money out. On top of that, they also actually have a lot of AI supporting them. They actually have a lot of robotics supporting them. Their autonomous cars are actually pretty amazing. What I'm trying to say is, yes, they have problems. They have a lot of youth unemployment. All these things are true. But that just probably means they have more room to print money. And the very fact that we're hitting this resistance zone after I mentioned it about 16 months ago that it would happen 12 to 18 months from now, and it has finally happened, I was initially cautious about this. I thought this could be a cycle ender right there. But again, I thought Bitcoin would have gone to, a lot higher by then. I thought a lot of things. I thought IWM would already have broken out, into all-time highs for like 6 months to a year already. No, that is just starting to happen. And the most bullish thing that I have to say about the Chinese market, the most bullish thing I have to say about the Chinese market is that nobody cares. Nobody cares. I keep posting and I see these things. One good thing about being an influencer is not influencing, but it's actually to get information from what's on X, because I have different metrics. Every single time I post about China, nobody cares except for Vivian and a couple other folks. Right? Nobody cares. I posted a video about Alibaba. Like it was nobody cares. Honestly, we do these weekend video on Danny's Patreon. I usually look at his chart, and I usually do these collaborative stuff with him. And we decided to release a video to talk about Tesla. Oh yeah, it got like thousands of views. When we release these things for free, people love free stuff. That's just kind of how it works. Well, I mean, for the most part, I do nothing but free stuff anyway, because anyway, that's beside the point. But when we release a video from like his Patreon on Alibaba, like maybe a few hundred views, nobody cares. Nobody really cares about China. And I think that's a mistake, right? Now, this is what I was talking about, the trend line and the resistance zone right there. I think we're right there. I think we're entering that area here on a relatively, I'm sorry about this. I don't know why they do that, but I'm entering an area where you're having a little bit of a rising three methods over here. And it looks like it could be having a breakout. That's what that particular pattern is telling me. It's just exited a daily bull flag here that I have drawn from a while back. If you see, I was eyeing this bull flag over here back in January 12th, and then 2 weeks later broke out. Looks like it wants to go higher. So as far as I'm concerned, rising three bull flag breakout doesn't matter. 2-month Ichimoku cloud breakout doesn't matter. You basically get the same idea. Momentum wants to shift onto the upside, right? If you're also comparing the Hang Seng Index with the S&P 500, this is a ratio of HSI over SPX. You can see that you have, I know, right? I'm so sorry you went into Iron, Wolf, and Cypher. I mean, you should have bought BABA. Anyway, it's fine. You can see that the ratio of the Hang Seng Index over S&P 500 has been going down, down, down. It's been underperforming the S&P 500 for years. Really ever since 2018 all the way to 2024. And that comes into the whole narrative of never buy Chinese stocks. Just when it starts to make a base, and just when it starts to make a little bit of higher highs and higher lows here of this Hang Seng Index over S&P 500, just when it starts to kind of outperform S&P 500 here for a little bit for the last year and a half. And it's reclaiming this month, like this 20-month moving average, clearly resistance here is reclaiming that into support, right? So does it mean that Chinese stocks are going to do well now that nobody cares? Maybe. Looking at Alibaba, this is from a while back. This is from before the breakout. I always talk about how Alibaba is so sexy before it does something. It ultimately went up $40, after I mentioned that. I was also extremely bullish down here, by the way. This is like the cleanest chart there is. Got rejected over the cloud, got supported here by the monthly Tenkan. If you're looking at the super Ichimoku instead of Ichimoku cloud, push through the cloud here, back test the cloud here. This is bullish, resistance turn support. You can see how there are 3 bull flags over here, kind of like the 3 little pigs, 3, 1, 2, 3. These bull flags are happening on declining volume. Sellers exhausted and then push up higher. Sell exhausted and push up higher, sell exhausted, push up higher. What are we seeing here? If you do Fibonacci retracement from top here to the bottom over here during this leg, it's just been going up and up and up, and it's just been basically back testing all these Fib levels. Climb up 3 Fib levels, back test 2, climb up like 4 Fib levels, back test 2. This is bullish. There's no doubt about it, right? Even Alibaba has one of the cleanest rising 3 methods, and it's a pretty bullish chart. If you're looking at Danny's charts here too, it looks bullish. I have nothing else to say. A red candle, it's been red. The red candle has been active for like 4 or 5 months. This is very bullish, right? Momentum here on panel 2 is going up. There's no retail here because you all don't care. Looking at Alibaba, same thing. You developed a red candle a couple months ago. It's a bull trend, right? Well, it's picking up, momentum is going up. There's nothing really bearish about this chart here. So the thing about it is, if Chinese stock look bullish, if they can potentially break out of the resistance of 2800, if they can potentially break out of the 0.786, if Alibaba is looking bullish and wanting to have further bullish continuation, if everything looks so great, why does Bitcoin suck? that's the next question. And that's the existential question I've been asking myself for the last couple months. I finally kind of came up with like my own solution, if you will. And my solution is that Bitcoin is just like any other asset. It needs to correct. And it hasn't really deleveraged, unlike IWM. IWM deleveraged back in April 2025. But Bitcoin hasn't really truly had a capitulation event, maybe until recently. Now, people are saying that this is a bear flag, how it's going to go down. Well, maybe. And people are saying how this mirrors, like the price action here just mirrors. Everybody pull RSI, everybody pulls up these like wave trend oscillator, everybody pulls up all kinds of tool to tell you that 2025 is just like 2021, and therefore 2026 is going to be just like 2022, based on structure. But there are a lot of fundamental things that are different here. First of all, IWM just broke about its all-time high. Second, gold is still making all-time highs. So that means that there's a lot of liquidity that's being trapped in gold still that allows for rotation whenever people want to exit, right? It's an overcrowded trade. It can keep going for a long time. I don't know when, but there is going to be a point where the narrative just gets so euphoric, if it hasn't already gotten euphoric enough, that the money is going to exit and it's going to go into something else. I would say that the reason why Bitcoin does not fit the current narrative trade at all is because Bitcoin has been going down. I do not think that Bitcoin does not fit the current narrative trade at all. Well, actually, I should say that. I do not think that Bitcoin price is going down because it does not fit the trade narrative. I think it's actually the other way around. But one way to also think about it too is maybe there's a little bit of delay in Chinese liquidity coming into Bitcoin, because you do have a little bit of consolidation here for the last 4 months here, and maybe that's why we're seeing some relative weakness here at Bitcoin, because there just wasn't enough liquidity to kind of support. Maybe there's a little bit of delay of liquidity going in. Maybe I'm just shooting hopium here. Maybe Bitcoin will never do well again. But there is a big difference between here in 2025 versus in 2021. There's a big difference. The big difference is this. Here, Bitcoin is making a little bit of exhaustive higher high here, but Chinese liquidity is already gone. This is like a clear bear trend here is already developed, right? Like this is weakness. There's no argument against this being strength, right? So if that's the case, Bitcoin going up, Chinese market going down, with the Hang Seng going down, bearish divergence, that's not going to work out well, right? Based on what liquidity is showing. Here, what is showing? Well, there's no bearish divergence. They've both gone up, right? Chinese market is consolidating right now, forming a nice bull flag. Actually, already have broken out. I just showed you already broken out. But people are talking about bear flag here in Bitcoin, which in isolation, yes, bear flag have about 2/3 of the chance working out. 1/3 of the chance doesn't work out. You have to kind of put it into greater context here, right? I have yet to see Bitcoin really truly tanking when the US dollar, by the way, this is the new way to spell dollar, the Bitcoin basically backtest a previous breakout zone when the US dollar gets rejected, which is what happened here during the last cycle over here, where the US dollar broke down underneath this line here, backtested and got rejected and go lower and just consolidate lower here for about a year. That's when Bitcoin decided to kind of shoot up. Here, what's going on? Well, you're backtesting this breakout line over here right when the US dollar, that's actually pretty interesting. Here, backtest the zone over there, US dollar backtested the bearish trend line, right? And then consolidated in the zone over here, Bitcoin consolidated above it. Is the second backtest here. Bullish backtest, bearish backtest. US dollar's only gone down. Bitcoin just hasn't gone up yet. Or I already quote myself here. Macro environment favors Bitcoin going up, but it simply hasn't. So either Bitcoin sucks now and nobody wants it anymore, or the run up is being delayed. I don't know which one it is. I have no idea. I'm just gonna leave it to your imagination. Now, this is also another thing that I was talking about here, which is the Russell 2000 versus Bitcoin. And I think that this cycle, and you can even see this cycle being very different from last cycle. Last cycle, comparing Bitcoin down here and IWM up above, if you're comparing the two, you can see that the last cycle, they just kind of ran up together in synchrony. They basically were bros hugging each other for a little bit too long, and it got a little bit awkward, and then they had to cool down together, you know. Like, it was to the point where it was like, you know, I don't know, like, this is weird. We're just doing the same thing. We're eating lunch at the same time. We are looking each other in the eye at the same time and looking away at the same time. We are trying to steal each other's lunches, but at the same time, so we just end up eating each other's lunch, which is kind of gross but kind of sweet. And it was getting to the point. It was like, you know, like, just get a room. Like, we can't get a room. We're dudes. We're not like that. You know, we're not like that. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but we're just not like that, right? And the next thing you know, they have to cool down together, and then they just kind of gone their separate ways ever since. This cycle is basically them kind of going a little bit of a separate ways here, where you have Bitcoin making a step up when small cap stocks making a step down. When you have the other way, small cap stock making a step up, you have a little bit of rotation of Bitcoin going down. They just can't rotate and rotate and rotate and rotate over and over again throughout the entire cycle for the last 3 years, including the most memorable move on the way down here, where everybody remembers but don't remember anymore. I have to remind you, if you've been in the market for the last year, you've been in the market for the last year, I have to remind you of one thing. Small caps tanked, right? They went straight down from January, February, all the way down to April. When Bitcoin actually made a little bit of an all-time high here in April, right? So that's when the narrative of everybody saying, oh, Bitcoin is the stuff, right? Narrative goes that Bitcoin is the store of value, is great, is showing relative strength, so why don't we sell all the stocks and then go into Bitcoin? Well, why don't we buy MSTR? Why don't we buy Metaplanet? Why don't we do all these things to leverage up on Bitcoin treasuries? Why don't we do that, right? So what happens after that? What happens is you have capitulation of small cap stocks, and it's just made a V-shaped recovery. And what happens with Bitcoin? Well, it made a little bit of a slight higher high here, and then it just completely rotated out as IWM is making an all-time high. So are you telling me that the narrative is saying that Bitcoin sucks, is just not the trading vehicle? Or are we talking about potential opportunity here? Because we're not talking about two guys here holding hands and just doing all weird and, you know, like getting all consensual about it and cooling down together. We're not talking about that. We're talking a little bit of a push and pull dynamic. I pull, you push, I pull, you push, I pull, you push. We're talking about a little bit of a rotation here. They're dancing. They're dancing in opposites. They are rotating, unlike last time. So I would be a lot more scared if Bitcoin is doing the same thing as IWM. I would be a lot more scared. I would be a lot more scared if Bitcoin's doing the same thing with like Hang Seng Index is going down. Right? I would be worried about Chinese liquidity not entering in. I'd be a lot more scared if those things happen. Now the key is those things haven't really happened, so this cycle is different from the last cycle in a lot of different sense. So I just want to reiterate the point here because I think it's a very, very important point to make, right? And I'm going to enter a little bit. I want to hold your hand. I know you do, or it's figuratively. I don't know. It's I don't have hands. I have paws, and my paws are soft, and it's going to cost you a lot of emotional damage to try to hold them. Let's move on to Ethereum. Before I move on to Ethereum, I've just already yapped for about 44 minutes, so I'm going to take a sip of tea here. Excuse me. I think I'm doing good time here. I think it's moving along, getting a lot of points across here that may or may not. It could just be me rambling on and on. You know, I figured I was going to make like an hour video anyway, based on all these quote research that I've done. I might as well just go on live and just start yapping and interact with you guys. So I haven't done that for quite some time anyway, so it's fun. I have a few charts here talking about Ethereum, talking about Doge. I just want to show a couple of things here. First of all, we're talking about the Chinese market. We're talking about Ethereum. That trend line, it went all the way over here. I don't know why I truncated here to make it less significant, but it went on a lot further down. And this is the trend I was talking about. You're right there. You so far you have a hard time kind of pushing through quite just yet. But with that said, this is a pretty beautiful rounded bottom here. This is like a little bit of a shallow handle here for that beautiful rounded bottom. We can call that an Adam and Eve double bottom. That's fine too. Does it have to go down, back test a lot further? Maybe, maybe not. But as far as I'm concerned, it looks like Hang Seng Index may be consolidating sideways here for a few months, trying to break out, when Ethereum is also doing very similar, forming a little bit of double bottom over here, trying to break out the first time, not able to, and consolidate sideways over here. I do wonder if these two liquidity sources are tied together and Ethereum is a little bit delayed. That's kind of what I have in mind here, because I was showing you, very, very similar things with Bitcoin here as well earlier, right? To talk about Ethereum, I think it might also tie a little bit more into the small cap stocks, the IWM Russell 2000, because it is a reflection in terms of how liquidity sources are going on in general. When I'm talking about the small caps breaking out, you would think that everything would break out, right? No, the only time that really has kind of relatively happened was last cycle, because because Adam and Steve were holding hands together, because they're having fun together, they were just having way too much fun together, and they were just kind of going up together. There's not really any separation. There's no privacy. There's no separate rooms. There's no separate beds. It's just really close and really hot and really weird, right? But that doesn't always happen that way. During the beginning stages of Ethereum, and you can say that Ethereum may not have tied as much back then to liquidity as it is now. I would argue that liquidity is liquidity, and that they want to pump Ethereum, they want to pump Ethereum, right? If you're looking at the previous cycle over here in 2016, IWM breakout, Ethereum actually went down. Actually went down sideways, and then it goes down. The entire thing took about 7 or 8 months. And then finally, after maybe 3, 4 months, 5 months of the IWM breaking out, that's when Ethereum just started going ballistic, right? Even last cycle, there's a little bit of delay. You have that November candle that did push up, but even Ethereum, it wasn't pushing about all-time high here quite just yet. It was still a low level, and not until IWM went boom, boom, boom. And that's when Ethereum went a lot higher after that. There's a little bit of delay there by a couple months. There's a little bit of delay here by maybe a few months, right? So far, IWM has broken out. I would argue maybe the third, fourth month of it kind of breaking out, and Ethereum has just been going down and forming some consolidation over here. You can see it, you can call it the last two monthly candle to be a bear flag of this candle over here, or you can also say that this is a bull flag of this pull over here. Whatever label you give it doesn't really matter. It's price action. I'm just comparing what happened before to what happened now. I'm just saying that there should be enough liquidity shall it decide to come in to pump Ethereum up. Very similarly, if you look at a metric here called the Ethereum dominance, which has no relations to any dominatrix fantasy. It's just the percentage of the cryptocurrency market cap that belongs to Ethereum, and it went as low as about 7% this cycle. It went as low as about 7% last cycle. So for some reason, Ethereum, when it goes down to 7% of the entire cryptocurrency market cap, people say it's too much. Let's pump it back up. We are at a very, very similar juncture where when you have the leveraging of IWM, usually Ethereum dominance also goes down, right? When you have breakout IWM happening, Ethereum dominance also breaks out. It went from about 12% here, eventually go up to about 20%. That was the euphoric phase of Ethereum back in 2021. what's happening here? You have a pull over here, you have bull flag over here, you have resistance over here, very similar resistance from before, and you just have IWM breaking out. Here, even Ethereum breakout here, Ethereum dominance breakout, excuse me, here did lag IWM breakout here by a couple months, or by like a few months. I do think that Ethereum probably will dominate because this is a bull flag, because we are experiencing very, very similar thing as before, even though it doesn't really fit the narratives of what is happening with like Bitcoin now is crap, nobody wants crypto anymore, blah 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 blah. Ethereum has no utility. Ethereum also has no utility last cycle, by the way, unless you think that trading JPEGs on NFTs is like a true utility. I would argue that like they just have so much liquidity and they're just splashing around. They just need to put somewhere, and they just need to pump something that has been accumulated for a long time, such as Ethereum. I cannot imagine something that has like a less accumulation zone as Ethereum has over the last 4 years. This is like a clear accumulation to me. So I think liquidity is probably going to end up coming in and end up pumping things. If you're looking at the Ethereum chart here against the US dollar index, you see some very similar thing here. Whenever you had a little bit of a back test here, that's when you have a cool down of Ethereum kind of, going back here. It kind of back tested previous breakout zone over here with this double bottom, and then it just went up a lot higher whenever the US dollar just ended up going sideways down and down. Here, what you are doing is you have a very similar accumulation zone over here. I would say this is like a double bottom. This is reaccumulation, and you have a bearish back test here of the US dollar against this line here, and you have a bullish back test here on a FIB level. This is like a 0.5 FIB level, I believe. And it's just been consolidating since, when the US dollar has been going down. So I don't know. Either Ethereum sucks and no one wants it anymore, or the run-up just hasn't happened yet. I do not know which one it is. I'm betting that is the latter. And I'm betting that it's just gonna go up whenever it is ready to do so. I see a comment of Fish Assassin. Who is RPP? I don't know. I know Goatsby. Goatsby is, he was, I mean, I have no comment on that. I don't know what you're talking about. So, moving on to the next chart here. If you're looking at Doge, I have a few charts for Doge here. I have 2 charts for Doge here. And what we're going to see is I have this one here from about 10 days ago, which is comparing what Doge does and what Russell 2000 does. What we're seeing here is that Doge generally lags behind IWM breakout by a few months. I would say the true breakout is this month in January, 2026, as opposed to before. I think these are like, they're trying to break out, but this is like a true breakout candle. Once that breakout candle happens, usually Doge has bottomed, right? Doge has bottomed over here. Doge has bottomed over here as well. There was about a 4-month delay before Doge goes up, and IWM would catch up. Oh, sorry. Doge should catch up to IWM about 4 months later. And you have, what are you, both male? and what you have here is, even the last cycle, there was a delay here for Doge run up with the IWM breakout candle. A lot of people remember how euphoric things were back in November, but Doge barely made a move. The big move for Doge really happened in January. That's when everybody was like super bullish on Doge at that point. And that's when the narrative comes, right? Oh, Doge is cool to trade now. Well, it kind of bottomed right around like October, November 2020. It's basically having very, very similar look right now. It has 3 down candle, kind of like it did over here. It looked like we might be finally back testing like horizontal breakout zone over here from before. It looks like IWM breaking out is maybe stabilizing the Doge price over here too. And maybe we have like maybe a couple months of delay here, but it looks like Doge is, you know, really kind of stabilizing over here. And I'm also going to show you one more Doge chart somewhere here. If you stop distracting me with this Rebecca person that I don't know. Doge lags behind IWM. That was the chart that I just showed. I have another, I thought I have another Doge. Oh, there you go. Another Dogecoin chart over here is this. You keep talking about the macro environment. I just posted this morning. Usually when you have the US dollar breaking down and back testing that area there, and when it gets rejected, Doge usually have bottomed. It may not have run up like crazy again because there are a few months of delay, but usually when that happens, Doge has bottomed, and it could end up having a little bit of a slow burn for months before taking off. Currently, we have a very similar situation where the US dollar has rejected. Again, interesting, like over here, back test, right? You think that's it, goes down. Nope, consolidated, back test again. That's when Doge like, oh no, back tested again. Crap, right? This here really tricked me. I thought this is it. I thought that was it. I thought it was going to go up from here, but nope. Another 8-9 months, give you another lick down. How do you like that, Cantonese cat? Yeah, bam, right? Form a little bit of bear flag here, trick you, boom, right? Okay, fine. You're going to back test that area again. You got rejected again. Can we go up now? Is it bottom? Can we go up now? Is that how it's going to work? So either Doge doesn't ever run up again because it doesn't have utility, or history will repeat itself. That is what I've said there. I have one final chart here that I want to show before I ride off to the sunset and end this hour-long live stream. It is this final one right here. And everybody hates altcoins, I know. I'm probably going to lose viewership just talking about altcoins here. But I'm going to talk about it anyway, because I'm not a very good influencer. Top here is others. Others is the cryptocurrency market cap excluding the top 10 coins. And what you're seeing here is a monthly chart. What you're seeing here is something called a super trend. You don't have to be a super great technical analyst to see that green means uptrend, red means downtrend, and we've been on an uptrend for about 2 years now. It just simply hasn't really broken above. Just like here, we're in the uptrend here, consolidate for about 8 months or something like that before breaking up. Here it consolidate here for about 5 months before breaking out. Here it consolidate for about 2 freaking years before breaking out. Why is that? Because IWM just refused to break out. IWM decided to consolidate sideways here for another year. So altcoins just end up getting destroyed. And it did nothing for an additional year. As a matter of fact, a lot of really micro cap altcoins just kept going down and down and down, and they finally have a capitulation candle here. Nobody wants to be in altcoins anymore. I wouldn't say nobody, but some pretty sick people like you and I that are listening to what I'm talking about right now might still be interested in altcoins. The truth is that the trend is still positive based on super trend on the monthly. And the truth is that you always have a rotation away from altcoins into small caps before they both run up together. Here in 2016, you have a consolidation, or you have a sideways, you have a correction over here for about 6 months. While IWM was breaking out, while the small caps was breaking out, here a consolidation over here for about 4 or 5 months when IWM was truly breaking out until they start running up together, right? Until they start running up together. Here, you have consolidation here for so long, and you finally have a breakout here, and you have further consolidation over here. Now, whenever this breakout happens, within a month or two, that's if this breakout happens, that's usually when altcoins bottom, right? Here is the bottom when small caps break out. Here's the bottom over here a couple months before small caps break out. I would argue that this breakout over here probably marked the bottom of altcoins because of cycle behavior. With that said, I have a big, giant disclaimer. None of the things that I say have to come true. All of these things I say are speculative. Everything that I'm looking at here are based on past experience by looking at what happened from previous cycles. None of these have to come true at all whatsoever, and I completely accept that this time is different. I would say that based on everything that I'm showing you here, I don't believe in the 4-year cycle because there is no 4-year cycle. You're talking about 4-year cycle, it has to apply to everything. It has to apply to gold, it has to apply to IWM, it has to apply to US dollar index, it has to apply to everything in the macro environment, because I do not think that Bitcoin and crypto are in isolation based on Bitcoin halving anymore. I just simply do not believe in that. And looking at this cycle just seemed longer. The sentiment is a lot less excited. Again, IWM, the wife, just suffered through with you eating Subway sandwiches for about 4 years. And it's finally getting some grocery store sushi. Like, it's not even tasting lobster yet. It's like, okay, I'll have some sushi. It's fine. It's subpar, but I'll accept it. It just doesn't make sense for it being a 4-year cycle. It just doesn't make sense just because Bitcoin looks like 2021 for it to be 2021. It just doesn't make sense that this has to be the same as that. Based on IWM, based on China, based on metals, and based on a lot of things that we're looking at, the US dollar index, based on a lot of things that we're looking at, it just doesn't make sense to me. Which goes back into why I am getting destroyed with Coinbase. 6 months of going down here on declining volume. The time before it goes down for months on declining volume, it went up pretty fast. The time before that went down on low volume. Oh, it just got engulfed by just one monthly candle. Where's that monthly candle going to come? Where's that quarter 3 straight candle going to come? I don't know. When is how low is it going to get? Is it going to get another low down here? I don't know. I have no idea. Is this cycle over? It doesn't seem like it is. Is Coinbase a bad company? Maybe it is. I mean, I don't think so. The earnings actually been pretty good. So I don't know any of these things, right? All I have to say is last time I remember seeing price going down on low volume and something good happens, but before it happens, it was extremely painful. It was AMD. Like, it went all the way from how high was it? 227, all the way down to ridiculously to $76 for 14 months on declining volume. Next thing you know, boom, 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 right? I mean, I don't know when this is going to come, but that's a very similar setup here. The other setup that I'm also seeing very similar, and there are two other scenarios here I can give is I do think that Coinbase is setting up very similar look as Iron is before it broke out. Iron was extremely brutal. It went all the way from like $16 all the way down to $5 on declining volume. Next thing you know, you have 6 months of boom, boom, boom volume, and next thing you know, it's like $62 right now. All right. What if this forms a lower low? Should you be scared? With my thesis for Coinbase doing well, with my thesis of Coinbase doing well being validated, if price decide all the way down to a capitulation candle all the way down to 120s, 110s, right? I'm talking about the worst scenario here. I don't know. I think it's finding a pretty decent bottom, and volume is really exhausted. Looks like altcoins turning around. IWM is making all-time high. All these things are kind of pointing to Coinbase doing well. And even rotation of large caps to small caps looks like it's over. They're probably going to end up running up together now that we have large cap earnings and things like that are going to come. So when is this going to be over? I don't know. What if it forms a lower low? Am I going to be scared? I might still be stubborn because I remember this chart called Cypher, where this is a lower low, and then next thing you know, boom, 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 boom. Like, to me, I just, it doesn't, I don't just look at like a single chart, I look at everything, right? And I just showed you every single thing I was talking about. So I don't know whether or not I would necessarily accept even a mix of lower low. And I would argue, like, for Cypher, this is not a lower low, like, this is a higher low compared to that, because it's just been a channeling all the way up, right? So I think that Coinbase, so far, until proven otherwise, is higher highs and higher lows. So yeah, I'm in it. You know, I'm sorry. I'm stalking. I'm gonna stop talking about coin now. I don't know what it's gonna do. I'm just gonna, you know, not be worried about it. I'm gonna probably, yeah. Somebody mentioned hymns doing the same thing, right? Going down on declining volume. How low is it gonna get? I don't know. What if this is wave 1 and this is wave 2? I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. Right? I don't know. This look like could be like a sideways, a little bit like a elite flat kind of thing. You know, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a position on hymns. The reason why I don't have a position on hymns is because a lot of people were rotating out from whatever is doing very badly into hymns, like Clean Spark. And a lot of people were trashing Palantir and was like pumping hymns, when the reality is you do the ratio between Palantir and hymns. Palantir has like clearly got a lot more momentum against hymns. Bullish is expanding with this Palantir over hymns ratio, and it doesn't look like it wants to stop anytime soon. So I don't, you know, but with that said, I think hymns, the lower it goes on declining volume, like I don't even worry about all these different technicals here anymore. The lower it goes on declining volume, I think it's probably the better bet that you can buy. Where is it going to go? Like, how low is it going to go? I don't know. Do you want to look for certain fib levels? Maybe it bounce off the 0.707, you know? Or if you do, like, you know, linear fib here, it did break down below the 0.382. Maybe you're close to a month about 0.382. Maybe that's a good entry zone. I don't know. All I know is, and even for AMD, I didn't know, right? It was like a crazy falling knife. And if you're looking at for like the bottom of AMD, there were a few speculation back then. I thought that, hey, you know, maybe 0.5 was it. Maybe 0.382 was it. It decided to go all the way down to 0.236 here and wick down and touch that level. They're perfectly fine before it stops correcting. Right? I don't know. Nobody knows. I thought that it was going to bounce on top of the Ichimoku cloud here. I thought the March candle here was the bottom, around 97 bucks. It went all the way down to the 70s. I don't know. Like, who knows? Anyway, that is my whole spiel. I don't have much to say about GME, with the exception, and I'm going to probably end the show here after talking about GME real quick. With the exception, it's underneath resistance here at the Ichimoku. It's also underneath the resistance here at the 20-month moving average. But that said, I do think that it's consolidated sideways here for long enough on no volume. And I think a big move is going to come. And based on the last time, I think GME pumped very similarly with Doge. With the big giant January candle basically pumped together with Doge on at the same month. And all of these candles since then, it's just an inside candle, this big giant candle in January. So I still favor for a bullish continuation. And I, for the purpose of not showing something this obscene here on my screen anymore, I think I am going to end the show. Yeah, I think I'm going to point the arrow away. I'm going to delete the arrow. And yeah, I'm going to turn that off. There you go. Thank you very much for listening to this rant. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If 2026 turned out to be a great year, which based on everything that I'm looking at, it seems like it could be a good year. And if it is, if small caps does do really well, I think it's going to be a banger year for 2026 based on things that I'm seeing. And if it works out great, I might stop my day job. I might do this live stream thing full-time 3 times a week. I might start my membership again. I might even try to sell a TA course because people still ask for it. I don't know why. You can probably learn all this stuff yourself. But yeah, we'll see how 2026 goes. And I might start making money off you when I don't need the money. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And y'all have a good night. Bye.